It was 5:18 p.m. on a Friday when Harold Dutton asked me to step into his office. No one in San Francisco says that at 5:18 unless something's dying. His blinds were drawn, the air too cold, a single folder on the polished walnut desk with my name, Melissa Crane, printed in block letters. I'd seen that folder template before. It only appeared when HR was involved. "Melissa," he started, voice measured like he was reading from a script. "We're implementing a reorganization. Your role has been made redundant, effective immediately." He didn't look at me. Outside, people were laughing, heading to happy hour. Inside, my entire career was evaporating. "Effective immediately," he repeated like punctuation. My throat tightened. I had been at Straylight Robotics for 11 years and 363 days. My 12-year vesting date, the moment $9.1 million in equity became irrevocably mine, was Sunday, April 7th. 48 hours away. I'd written the date in thick blue Sharpie on the corner of my whiteboard 2 years ago, a silent countdown that had kept me sane through late nights and glass-eyed board reviews. "That's quite the coincidence," I said, keeping my tone calm though my palms were slick. "It's not personal," Harold replied, "just strategy after the Hydra Systems acquisition. Your department overlaps." Overlaps. Cute word. I'd built the Hydra integration codebase myself, 3 straight months of caffeine and chaos. I rewritten the telemetry parser that handled 84 million data packets a day. Without me, Hydra would still be a jumble of half-functional firmware and broken APIs. But he just folded his hands and stared. "I'll need to review whatever you're having me sign," I said evenly. He nodded. "HR will forward your separation agreement this evening. 8-month severance, standard non-compete." The meeting lasted 7 minutes. That's all 11 years were worth. When I got back to my cubicle, Carol from HR was already there with a cardboard box and that brittle, sympathetic smile corporate people wear when they know they're complicit. I packed silently, coffee mug, mechanical keyboard, 3 dying plants. My phone buzzed, 1 new text from Laura, my attorney. 2 days, Melissa. Stay calm." 12 years ago, when I first joined Straylight, Laura had redlined my employment contract so aggressively, the company's legal counsel had called her difficult. She'd been the one to change a tiny clause buried in Section 14C, the one that defined when equity vested. Instead of close of business on the anniversary date, it now read, vesting occurs at 0000.01 on the anniversary calendar date, independent of employment status. A single sentence, a single second past midnight, a lifetime of difference. I didn't tell Harold any of it. I carried my box in my car, a 10-year-old Corolla with 187,000 miles, in an air freshener shaped like a lemon slice, and sat there for a long time, hands trembling on the steering wheel. The badge reader at the parking exit flashed red. They'd already deactivated me. At home, the separation packet was waiting in my inbox, sent at 5:29 p.m., 14 minutes after my termination. Standard offboarding, the email said. 15 pages of dense legal jargon, a polite obituary for my career. Section 11 hit hardest. Termination prior to vesting shall result in forfeiture of all unvested equity. They thought they'd beaten me by 48 hours. They didn't know they'd lost by 47. I called Laura. "They finally did it," I said. Her voice was calm, almost cheerful. "Perfect. Don't sign a damn thing. And Melissa?" "Yes." "Congratulations. In 36 hours, you're going to be very, very rich." I laughed, a shaky, disbelieving sound that didn't feel real. "You think they won't fight it?" "Oh, they'll fight it," she said. "But you've got the clause, the timestamps, and my initials next to it. They can't undo that." I stared at my laptop screen. The Straylight Equity portal open, but frozen, loading endlessly. It always lagged when I needed it most. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd built half the damn system. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the meeting, Harold's flat expression, the folder, the silence when I didn't cry. Saturday morning felt unreal, bright, almost mocking. I tried to make breakfast, couldn't eat. My mind kept circling back to that 1 second, midnight between Saturday and Sunday, when everything would change. At 11:59 p.m., I sat on the couch. The equity portal opened again. The seconds dragged like years. Then at 12:01 a.m., the page flickered. Numbers populated. 3,208,444 shares fully vested as of April 7th, 0000.01. $9,143,600.92. I took screenshots from 3 different devices, saved them everywhere, desktop phone, 2 flash drives, sent one to Laura. 38 seconds later, her reply appeared. Absolutely perfect. Don't respond to anything they send. Let them stew until Monday. I should have felt victorious. Instead, the room felt unbearably quiet, just my refrigerator humming, the city outside asleep. 11 years of loyalty distilled into a number glowing on a screen. On Sunday afternoon, Carol emailed again. Please sign and return your separation documents by Monday morning. They were rushing, hoping I'd sign before someone realized I'd already vested. I could almost picture Harold on a conference call, his tie loosened, voice low. She hasn't signed yet, has she? Laura called that evening. She said they'll realize first thing Monday. They'll call it a clerical error, a misinterpretation, maybe even fraud. They'll come hard. How hard? $9 million hard. Monday came wrapped in silence, the kind that feels intentional. I woke up at 6:07 a.m., not because I had anywhere to be, but because my body hadn't yet accepted unemployment. Sunlight pushed through my blinds in pale stripes. My inbox had 12 new emails, all from Straylight Robotics. The subject lines read like panic disguised as procedure. Clarification required, urgent, equity record discrepancy, immediate response requested. They discovered it. I made coffee, black and bitter, and opened the first email. It was from Harold Denton himself. Melissa, it began, there appears to have been an administrative error in the timing of your equity vesting. Please refrain from accessing or liquidating any company shares until this is resolved. I smiled. Refrain from accessing. Cute. Like I hadn't already moved them to a secure holding account overnight. Laura had told me to do it just in case someone got creative. By 12:05 a.m. Sunday, my $9.1 million in shares had already been transferred. Legally, irrevocably, and timestamped to the millisecond. I replied simply, all vesting occurred per the executed employment contract. I am no longer under Straylight's directives. 5 minutes later, another email arrived. This one from General Counsel Ethan Brooks. Miss Crane, your vesting clause appears to contain language that deviates from our standard policy. We're investigating its validity. Please provide documentation regarding any amendments made. I didn't respond. I forwarded it to Laura. Her reply came almost instantly. They're fishing. Don't bite. I'll handle them. By 8:42 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it ring twice before answering. Miss Crane? This is Ethan Brooks, Straylight Legal. We'd like to discuss an expedited resolution to the vesting matter. His tone was smooth, practiced, someone used to intimidating people into compliance. I'm represented by counsel, I said evenly. You'll need to speak to her. Understood, he said, but not kindly. I hope you realize this appears to be a drafting error, not intentional. Funny, I said. I was there when your legal department approved it. Twice. He didn't answer that, just to pause long enough to hear his jaw tighten. Then I'm sure this will get cleared up quickly, he said, and hung up. 2 hours later, Laura called. They're panicking. They just filed an internal audit notice with the board. It's getting ugly in there. Good, I said. They deserve it. Careful, she warned. They'll spin this as fraud if they can. They'll try to paint you as manipulative or disloyal. Disloyal? I laughed. I gave them 11 years of my life. Exactly. And that's what scares them. By noon, LinkedIn lit up with rumors. Senior engineer exits Straylight ahead of leadership restructuring. Sources claim major vesting dispute. My phone buzzed nonstop. Old colleagues, recruiters, journalists. I ignored most of them. But one message caught my eye. It was from Tom Wilder, a project manager I'd trained years ago. They're holding an emergency board meeting, he texted. Harold looks like he's about to explode. Word is someone leaked the vesting clause. My pulse kicked up. I hadn't leaked anything, but maybe someone inside had found a conscience. Keep your head down, I texted back. This isn't over. No kidding. He replied, they're calling it the midnight clause. Half the company's whispering about it. I almost laughed. The midnight clause. It sounded cinematic. Exactly what it was. A single sentence that turned corporate betrayal into poetic justice. By 3 p.m., Laura looped me into a Zoom call. Her background was her usual. Clean bookshelves, nothing personal. They're offering you a deal. A settlement in exchange for waiving any future claims and signing an NDA. How much? $1.2 million. I let out a breath that was half a scoff. So they want to buy back 9 for 1. Essentially, she said, they'll frame it as an administrative resolution to protect their board reputation. No, I said. Not yet. You sure? They'll come harder next. Let them. That night, I ordered takeout and opened my laptop to find that my Straylight login still worked for one forgotten corner of the system, the internal project tracker. Their mistake. I scrolled through the logs, eyes narrowing. They'd already reassigned my Hydra code to 3 junior engineers. Poor kids. They had no idea what landmine they were inheriting. I'd written most of it in a proprietary language I built myself, one that required an encryption key tied to my old credentials. Without it, the system would start failing silently in about 72 hours. Not catastrophic, just inconvenient. Enough to make investors nervous. I didn't plan to weaponize it, not yet, but I bookmarked everything just in case. On Tuesday morning, Laura sent an encrypted message. Board wants private negotiation. They're terrified this leaks to Hydra's execs. I stared at the screen, feeling that slow electric satisfaction build. Good, I typed. Let's talk terms. You sure you want to go public with them at the table? Absolutely, I said. They tried to fire me before I vested. Now they can watch me collect in person. Wednesday came with an invitation. Simple, sterile, corporate. Special meeting, equity dispute review. 10 a.m. PST. The location line read, Straylight. HQ, Executive Conference Room, 4B. The same room where I'd presented the Hydra integration plan 2 years ago, the one that saved them from collapse. I smiled. Looks like we're going back to where it started, I told Laura. They're making a mistake, she said. They think you'll fold when they corner you. Then they're about to learn what cornered feels like. As I closed my laptop, the city lights blinked against the glass, a reflection of everything they'd underestimated. Tomorrow, they'd face the woman they tried to erase and the contract that refused to forget. Wednesday morning felt like a rerun of a life I'd already quit. Same coffee, same skyline, same building, only this time I wasn't an employee walking in with a badge. I was an invited problem. Straylight HQ stood tall and smug over Market Street, glass gleaming like nothing inside it could ever rot. The receptionist froze when she saw me. My badge didn't work, of course, but Laura flashed her attorney credentials, and suddenly we were being escorted up to the 34th floor. The elevator ride was quiet except for the hum of air vents. Laura looked calm in that terrifying lawyer way, eyes steady, smile controlled, folder in hand like a loaded weapon. I had my own copy of the contract, printed, highlighted, and tabbed. Every word that had once been ignored was now my armor. The doors opened to a hallway that smelled of money and panic. A glass conference room waited at the end, all steel and silence. Inside were 4 people. Harold, looking pale and tight-lipped, Ethan Brooks, the company's general counsel, a woman from HR I didn't recognize, and a man in an expensive suit who radiated board-level authority. Melissa, Harold said stiffly, standing, thank you for coming. You didn't leave much of a choice, I said, setting my folder down. Let's get to it. Ethan gestured for everyone to sit. We'll keep this professional. We believe there's been a misunderstanding regarding your equity vesting clause. Our records indicate an inconsistency. No, Laura interrupted, her voice sharp as a blade. There's no inconsistency. The executed contract is clear. Clause 14C was modified before signing, initialed by both parties and confirmed by your legal team in 2013. Vesting occurs at 1 second past midnight on the anniversary date, regardless of employment status. Ethan exhaled slowly, like he'd rehearsed for this. That may be, but such language was never approved by corporate counsel. It appears to have been inserted post-approval. Are you accusing my client of document tempering? Laura asked, voice still calm but dangerous now. Because I have metadata proving otherwise. Time-stamped drafts, email threads from your own legal server. You approved it. Silence. The board member cleared his throat. Miss Crane, we're not here to litigate. We're here to find an amicable resolution. You understand the optics. This could create unnecessary turbulence for all parties. Optics, I repeated. You fired me 48 hours before vesting, thinking I'd lose everything. That's not optics. That's strategy. Harold flinched. Melissa, it wasn't personal. It was calculated and sloppy.
Laura slid a document across the table. Here's our counteroffer. My client retains all vested equity as per the binding agreement. Straylight issues a written acknowledgement confirming full vesting. In exchange, we'll sign a non-disparagement clause and walk away. Ethan skimmed it, his jaw tightening. You realize that's effectively an admission of fault. You realize that's the only way this stays quiet, Laura said. The board member leaned forward. Miss Crane, if this becomes public, it could affect our upcoming merger. We're willing to consider additional compensation if you're flexible. How flexible? $2.5 million, cash, contingent on NDA compliance, he said. I let out a soft laugh. You're offering me $2.5 million to pretend I didn't catch you trying to steal 9? The board member didn't answer. His silence was the kind of arrogance that used to intimidate me. Not anymore. I leaned forward, meeting his gaze. Here's my flexibility. You admit the vesting stands, I keep my shares, and I don't talk. That's the only deal I'm signing. Harold shifted uncomfortably. Melissa, think about your reputation. No one wants to work with someone who sues their former employer. You mean no one wants to work with someone who wins, I said. Ethan's expression finally cracked. He turned to the board member. We'll need a recess. They stepped outside, leaving Laura and me alone in the icy conference room. She smiled faintly. You rattled them. I deserve worse, I said. They'll come back with another offer, maybe more cash, maybe a softer NDA. And if they don't, then we file, she said. Contract enforcement, wrongful termination, retaliation. You'll be the headline they can't bury. The door opened again. They filed back in, faces set but voices calm. Ms. Crane, the board has agreed to honor your vesting as stated in the contract. In exchange, we require confidentiality moving forward. Laura nodded once. Send it in writing by end of day. Harold looked relieved but not happy. He knew this wasn't over. Thank you for being reasonable, he said. Oh, I'm not being reasonable, I said, standing. I'm being legal. As Laura and I walked out, the receptionist avoided eye contact. The elevator doors closed behind us, and for the first time in days, I exhaled. That's it, I asked. For now, Laura said, but trust me, they'll try something else. People like that never lose gracefully. The email sat there, pulsing on my screen like a threat dressed as a whisper. You think you've won, but you don't know what's coming. No name, no signature, no traceable address, just plain text and silence. My first thought was Harold. He was petty enough for something like that. My second thought was Ethan, the kind of man who liked veiled intimidation wrapped in professionalism. But Laura had warned me, don't respond to anything, they'll bait you into a mistake. So I didn't. I shut my laptop, poured myself a glass of wine, and tried to brood like someone who just outsmarted a billion-dollar corporation. Only my hands wouldn't stop trembling. By morning, I knew something was wrong. My Straylight stock account, the one that showed my vested shares, was suddenly locked. Invalid credentials, it said. I tried again, same message. Then an email from the broker. Due to ongoing internal review, your account has been temporarily restricted pending confirmation of ownership documentation. I froze. This wasn't a coincidence. They were trying to freeze the shares before the deal paperwork finalized. My phone buzzed. Laura calling. I saw it, she said, before I could speak. They're claiming administrative lockout. It's illegal, but it buys them time. So what now? I asked, pacing the kitchen. We go nuclear, she said. I'm filing an injunction this morning. They'll have to unlock it or explain themselves in front of a judge. I sat down, pressing my palms against my temples. They're not done, are they? No, Laura said. They're desperate. The merger closes in 10 days, and your vested shares are now part of that valuation. If they can stall until then, they'll argue post-merger restructuring voids the contract. They're not stalling, I said slowly. They're erasing. I opened my inbox again, scrolling through older messages. Something was off. The HR emails from Friday, the termination notice, the offboarding packet were gone, deleted. Not by me, and not in trash. They were wiped. I felt a cold rush through my stomach. Laura, I said quietly, they're deleting evidence. Then we mirror what's left right now. Screenshots, timestamps, external backups, everything. I spent the next 2 hours cataloging every shred of correspondence I had. Contracts, internal messages, system logs, even old Slack screenshots. Every pixel was proof. At 11:45 p.m., Laura messaged again. Court accepted emergency hearing for 2 p.m. Get ready. I didn't even have time to think before a second message followed. They've hired Klein & Horvath LLP. Big guns. My stomach dropped. Klein & Horvath were infamous, corporate fixers, the kind of lawyers who specialized in burying people like me under paperwork until they begged to disappear. At 1:58 p.m., I joined the virtual hearing. The judge appeared, a woman in her 60s with tired eyes and no patience for theatrics. Case number 2483C, Crane versus Straylight Robotics. Ethan Brooks was there, along with a younger man in a $1,000 suit, one of Klein's associates, no doubt. Laura was calm as ever, camera perfectly centered, tone measured. Your Honor, my client's shares have been wrongfully frozen in direct violation of a binding equity agreement. Ethan spoke next, slick as oil. Respectfully, Your Honor, the company is simply ensuring procedural compliance pending an internal audit. There is no intent to obstruct Mrs. Crane's rights. Laura didn't even blink. Then they can unlock the account immediately, correct? Ethan hesitated, and that was all it took. The judge leaned forward. Mr. Brooks, I suggest you do exactly that. I'm granting a temporary injunction in favor of Mrs. Crane until a full review is complete. Any interference will be viewed as contempt. Laura gave me a small nod on screen, our silent victory salute. Ethan's expression curdled, but he said nothing. By 4 p.m., the shares were unlocked, temporarily. I knew they'd try again. That night, as I sat watching the city lights shimmer against the bay, another message came through, this time from Tom Wilder. Melissa, you need to see this. He attached a photo, an internal email chain he'd intercepted. At the top, subject, Hydra integration contingency. The body read, in case Crane escalates, trigger the fail-safe sequence, disable her code access, and initiate system audit. And then below that, one short line from Harold himself. If the system fails, blame her. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. They weren't just trying to steal from me now. They were preparing to destroy my reputation. I opened my old terminal window, the one they didn't know I could still access, and logged into the Hydra server. The code was still there. My signature encryption keys, my architecture, my safety triggers, everything. I could shut it down in seconds if I wanted to. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I wrote one line of code. Silent, invisible, buried deep. A marker. A warning. If they touched my work, the system would quietly log every unauthorized access attempt and send a copy to a private encrypted cloud account. They wanted a war? Fine, but I wasn't going to fight it on their terms. At 11:58 p.m., another message came through from the anonymous address. This time, it had an attachment. A screenshot. My signature on the termination document I never signed. The subject line said only, proof.
I stared at that forged signature until the room felt smaller, the air thicker. They were crossing a line I didn't think even Ethan would dare to cross. Falsifying legal documents. I zoomed in on the curve of the signature. It was close, eerily so, but the angle was wrong. Whoever did it used a digital overlay, maybe lifted from my previous contracts. Amateur move. I could prove it, but that wasn't enough. They weren't just trying to steal my shares anymore. They wanted to bury me with the accusation of fraud. I forwarded the fake document to Laura. Within minutes, she called. They forged your signature. That's federal, she said, her voice sharper than usual. We can go to the SEC and the Department of Labor tomorrow morning, but there's something bigger here, Melissa. Look at the timestamp. I pulled it up, 2:17 a.m., the day after the injunction. They tried to backdate it, I whispered. They're trying to make it look like the termination happened before my shares vested. Exactly, she said, which means they know the vesting's valid. They're just rewriting history to erase it. I felt something inside me click into place. Fear left. Rage took its seat. No more defense, I said quietly. I'm done reacting. It's time they explain themselves publicly. Laura hesitated. What are you thinking? Hydra, I said. The system logs everything. Every commit, every signature, every change since version 1. If I can extract the chain of custody, we can prove who accessed the backend to alter timestamps. You still have access? She asked. Not officially, I said, smirking, but they built Hydra on my architecture. They forgot who wrote the root key. At 3 a.m., I opened my old terminal again. The code scrolled across the screen like an old friend, whispering secrets. I navigated to the admin layer and decrypted the audit trail. There it was. Thousands of entries, each one stamped with user credentials. At 2:17 a.m., user hsmith_admin had accessed the termination folder and modified document metadata. Harold. Idiot. He'd used his own admin ID. I exported the logs, encrypted them, and sent a copy to Laura and Tom. We've got them, Tom messaged back. You have no idea what this means. Internal forensics will eat this alive. But it wasn't enough for me. They had humiliated me, silenced me, and tried to erase me. Proof was good, but exposure was better. I drafted a post for my professional page. I didn't name the company. I didn't need to. When a corporation tries to erase your work, your worth, and your name, remember, code doesn't lie. Every keystroke leaves a trail. Within hours, it went viral. Developers, engineers, and ex-employees started messaging me, sharing similar stories. Contracts withheld, shares canceled, NDAs forced.
By noon, an investigative journalist from The Verge reached out. We're hearing whispers about Straylight Robotics equity fraud. Can you confirm? I can prove it, but I'll need full anonymity until it's public. Laura was cautious but supportive. Once this goes live, she warned, they'll come after you harder. You could be sued, blacklisted, or, I interrupted, they could crumble. That afternoon, The Verge published the story. Whistleblower claims Straylight Robotics manipulated employee stock records before $9 billion merger. They didn't use my name, but the timing and details were unmistakable. Straylight's PR team released a denial within an hour, but then Tom sent me something that made me sit down. A leaked internal memo from Ethan Brooks himself. All employees are reminded that discussing equity or contracts with external parties constitutes a breach of confidentiality. Violations will be terminated immediately. That was it. The fire had started. Over the next 48 hours, employee forums flooded with screenshots, pay stubs, and internal threads. One anonymous user even leaked a partial list of terminated prior-to-vest employees. 47 names, all within the last fiscal quarter. It was a pattern, a system, not an accident. And every one of them had equity that never conveniently vested. I wasn't alone anymore. That night, Laura called again. They filed a motion to silence you, cease and desist for defamation. I laughed. They can try, but they can't silence the truth. She exhaled. You know this isn't over, right? No, I said, looking out over the city again, lights flickering like static. This is just the prelude. I ended the call and returned to the terminal. The Hydra logs pulsed on my screen, like a heartbeat. I typed a final line of code, one I'd been saving. If Straylight executes any internal deletion commands targeting equity data, mirror and publish full logs to public blockchain archive. Enter. The system confirmed. Command accepted. Protection active. I leaned back, letting the hum of my laptop fill the silence. They wanted to erase me from their story, but by morning, the whole world would see mine.
By sunrise, Straylight Robotics was on fire. Figuratively, then almost literally. The Verge story had triggered an avalanche. By 9 a.m., regulators were circling, employees were walking out, and investors were demanding emergency board meetings. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Reporters, lawyers, whistleblowers, even old colleagues sending congratulations or warnings. I didn't answer any of them. I was focused on the final act. Ethan Brooks, the man who'd orchestrated this whole operation, was scheduled to give a live press statement at 10 a.m. from the company's San Francisco headquarters. We categorically deny any wrongdoing, I could already hear him saying in that practiced, composed voice. He'd lied through that smile like he'd lied to all of us. But today, the truth had its own script. Laura called at 9:15. You're sure about this? She asked. Once it's out, you can't take it back. I looked at my second monitor, Hydra's encrypted dashboard, the one I'd quietly mirrored before they locked me out. The blockchain node showed full synchronization. I'm sure, I said. They built their empire on my code. Let's see how it feels when it speaks for itself. At exactly 10 a.m., Ethan appeared on screen. Sleek suit, calm posture, PR-perfect composure. These recent allegations are the result of misinformation and disgruntled individuals attempting to tarnish. And then it happened. The background screens behind him flickered once. Then again. The company logo dissolved, replaced by cascading lines of code, the Hydra interface streaming live to every connected monitor across Straylight's network. Then, a bold header appeared. Equity log records, unauthorized modifications detected. Beneath it, thousands of time-stamped entries rolled down the feed. User IDs, admin access, document edits, signature alterations. At the bottom, one line flashed red. Modification by H. Smith, U.S. admin, 2:17 a.m., attempted termination backdate detected. The feed didn't stop. It mirrored across every public terminal, every news broadcast covering the statement. The company's own servers were broadcasting their crime. Ethan froze mid-sentence. The crowd of journalists erupted. Laura texted one word: perfect. Within 20 minutes, the live stream had gone global. Hashtags like Straylight Fraud and hashtag Code Never Lies trended across social media. The SEC released a statement confirming an active investigation. By afternoon, Harold Smith's resignation for personal reasons hit the wires, followed by Ethan Brooks stepping down pending inquiry. The board tried to distance itself, but it was too late. The merger was suspended indefinitely.
Straylight's stock plummeted 43% in a single day. That was their collapse. But my revenge wasn't about the money anymore. It was about truth, about being seen, about taking back every piece of me they tried to rewrite. Laura called again that evening. The injunction stands. Your shares are secure. And with what's unfolding, they might be worth even more after restructuring. I smiled faintly. I'm not sure I even care about the payout now. You should, because it's justice, measured in the same currency they used against you. I hung up and stared at the city below. The air felt cleaner somehow, lighter. But just as I started to close my laptop, another notification appeared. An encrypted message, no sender. It read, "You think you won, but Hydra was never yours alone." Attached was a line of code. Familiar, my own syntax, but rewritten. I stared at it for a long time, unsure whether to smile or shiver. I typed back one line into the console. Then let's see who it listens to now, and hit enter. The screen went black for a moment before flickering back to life. A single phrase appeared. "Welcome back, Melissa." The system was alive. Mine again. For the first time since this all began, I laughed, sharp, relieved, unstoppable. They'd tried to fire me, erase me, silence me, but my $8 million invested shares had already made me untouchable. And now, so had the truth.